Hello and welcome to Transfermarkt TV. My name is Stefan and I'm joined once again by Ben and Euan. And today we are talking about Liverpool midfielder Alexis McAllister. There was a huge showdown in the Premier League on Sunday. Liverpool versus Manchester City ended in a score draw, a really hard-fought battle between both teams. Liverpool fans may be a little aggrieved by the end of the match. They should have taken all 3 points. And Ben, as you wrote for Transfermarkt this week, a lot of that was simply down to the really impressive performances of midfielder Alexis McAllister. So why don't you just kick things off and let us know what you think he's done this season and why you think he's very quickly become one of Liverpool's most important players?
Yeah, I think he's one that's really gone under the radar so far this season. His impact that he's had at Liverpool. Obviously, we've seen Liverpool completely ravaged with some injury problems this season. So many players missing out, including midfielders Endo and Szoboszlai, who have both missed a lot of football through injury and through Endo going to the Asian Cup. Alexis McAllister's versatility has been so key, and I think without it, there's no way Liverpool would be joint with Arsenal with 64 points at the top of the Premier League table. I think he's been fantastic. For the majority of the games, he's had to sit in and play as a holding six player, which I don't think anybody expected when they signed the Argentine in the summer from Brighton. But he's excelled in that role and he's been so important. His tackling has been superb. He's made 64 tackles this season for Liverpool, and that is more than double any other midfield player. Endo's made just 30, Szoboszlai 29. The next Liverpool player alone on that list is Joe Gomez. You could argue there that Endo and Szoboszlai have missed some football, but when we compare that to the rest of the Premier League, he's made more tackles than Declan Rice and Rodri, who I think probably most people would argue are the 2 best holding midfield players in the Premier League right now. So it shows that versatility. Now that Endo's back in the team, I think we're seeing the best of McAllister when he's slightly in that a little bit more advanced 8 role on the left, which he played against Man City on Sunday and was superb and got man of the match.
Yeah. Euan, in a way, McAllister's kind of come to kind of symbolise everything that we expect from Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, doesn't he? He's a player who can play a number of positions, and maybe it's just under Klopp's kind of, stewardship that these players just seem to find that extra 10%, particularly in energy levels or in the way that they can adapt to different positions. And the fact that McAllister, I think Ben actually quoted Klopp in his article talking about how, Klopp was adamant that McAllister can be a world-class number 6, even if he was maybe signed as a number 8, or even a player who could maybe plays a number 10 if we saw him for Argentina in the World Cup. But it's just typical Liverpool that they sign a player like this and Klopp kind of squeezes him into a position and suddenly he just starts performing like a world-class player.
Yeah, I'll forward to you after this, but is he the best signing of the season? The Premier League, he's got to be in there for me. I think Declan Rice is another one who's had such a big effect at Arsenal, but if you look at the price of both players, then he'd make a strong case for McAllister. I think he's been that good. You've got to remember as well, Liverpool completely changed their midfield in the summer, bringing in Endo, Szoboszlai and McAllister. Another shout out for Curtis Jones, who I think has been excellent this season as well. But they've really changed their midfield, and that can take time to build partnerships. But Liverpool have done that, and they're still fighting in all 4 competitions. Well, they won 1 and still fighting another 3. The top of the league. I don't think many people would have expected that, and I think McAllister's been really important to them. They're not actually top of the Premier League anymore. I seen Ben's face there because I think Arsenal went top. But they're right in the mix anyway. And McAllister's been a top player. He's a World Cup winner as well, and he's got ice in his veins. That penalty at the weekend, he seemed the calmest man at Anfield. So he's a top player.
Yeah, I would actually maybe only person I can think of that comes to mind to maybe rival him for signing the season would be actually his midfield teammate Endo, who's signed for less money, and similarly like McAllister, Ben, the 2 of them formed this formidable midfield partnership to the extent that we saw something truly remarkable in Sunday's game where you had these 2 newcomers to Liverpool. Of course, McAllister has Premier League experience, alongside Szoboszlai, another new signing. And for large parts of the game, particularly in the second half, it felt to me like Liverpool were not only taking the game to Man City, but they're actually dominating in the middle of the park against established world-class midfielders, whether it's Bruyne, but most notably Rodri. Obviously, Kovacic had to come on, obviously, to try and steady the ship there to the extent. And it's just remarkable how, if you compare the strides of McAllister and obviously Endo to the same extent, have made at Liverpool, and you draw the comparison to clubs who've had similar kind of turnover of players, Chelsea, for example, with Caicedo, a similar player, or McAllister's former teammate at Brighton. You can draw a comparison to Man United as well, who've had some big changes in midfield as well. For some reason, it hasn't worked at those clubs, but it has worked at Liverpool.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons Liverpool's midfield has been successful so quickly, I mean, it's got to be Jurgen Klopp, the impact he has on Liverpool and the players. But one thing that really impressed me was Man City were the better team for the first half, and Liverpool were lucky to probably be 1-0 down at half-time. They came out in the second half, they got that penalty early. When McAllister dispatched it excellently, put it in the corner of the net, I was expecting a lot of relief around Anfield. You know, they've equalised against the team that have just won the Premier League for 3 seasons. I was expecting big celebrations. And what really surprised me was McAllister just ran and got the ball instantly. And within 5 or 6 seconds, Liverpool players were back at the halfway line, ready to go again. And that mentality is just incredible. And for young players and players that are new to these massive games like McAllister, Szoboszlai, Endo, like the second time these 3 have played against Man City in a game like this. And to have that mentality is so impressive. And I think really epitomises the impact that McAllister's had, and one of the reasons that Liverpool have been so successful, not only this season, but under Jurgen Klopp in the Premier League in recent years.
Yeah, Euan, we talk a lot about how Liverpool are doing right now, but obviously fans will have one eye next season. Jurgen Klopp's obviously moving on at the end of the summer. As good as Enzo's been in terms of that kind of midfield partnership alongside him, I think it's probably fair to say that in the long term, they're probably going to have to find a long-term replacement, obviously, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he's 30, 31 right now. Not to say that he can do it next season, but going forward, there probably will be plans there. For the next Liverpool manager, whoever it may be, you would imagine that, yes, they've got their fantastic forward players, yes, they've got talented defenders, but in the middle of the pitch, that midfield will probably more or less be built around McAllister going forward.
Yeah, I think it'll be the priority position for recruitment this summer for Liverpool, because, as you mentioned, they've got a world-class goalkeeper, they've got 2 world-class centre-halves, they're both our full-backs are good, maybe Robertson's getting on a bit, but he's still a top-class player, and they've got amazing options in the final third. So although all the midfielders are playing really well this season, I think that's the area that they'll look at the most in the summer is I think they're bringing a big midfield player to complement other players in there. And yeah, I mean, Endo's been excellent. McAllister has been great as well. Curtis Jones, as I mentioned previously, I think he's had a fantastic season, but they're going to bring a real big top class player there, and I think their squad looks really strong. And for whatever manager comes in, I think Jurgen Klopp's left in a really good position. Not only the kind of first team talent who are operating at a very high level, but also, as we've seen recently, the younger talent coming through. Kwanzaa, for example, played against City at centre half. I thought he was really good. Connor Bradley's come into the side and looked really good as well. I suppose maybe the caveat to that is what happens with Trent. Does the emergence of Connor Bradley perhaps push him into a midfield role, and do they see him there long term? We know Klopp likes it, but there's no guarantee that the next manager will do that as well. So I suppose Trent's the one to kind of keep an eye on as well with regards to the midfield position.
Yeah, especially if Gareth Southgate becomes the next Liverpool manager, maybe all sorts of problems there for Trent Alexander-Arnold. On a more serious note, Ben, before we finish up, where do you see McAllister playing in the future? We talked about how he was number 8 at Brighton, how he loves to get forward, but maybe out of necessity this season, we've seen Liverpool have to shoehorn him in at number 6, where he has actually thrived. So if you're the next Liverpool manager, do you put McAllister at number 6 and maybe go out and sign number 8, or as you just said, maybe even stick Trent Alexander-Arnold in there, or do you play him further forward where he seems to be perhaps more comfortable?
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. The key word this season has been necessity. That's the reason he's been playing the number 6 role. I see him long term as a number 8 sort of box-to-box midfielder with a holding midfielder alongside him. I think if you look in his last 7 games in all competitions since Endo's been alongside him, he's had 7 direct goal contributions. So that's a goal contribution every game. His numbers were much lower without that, 0.13, when he's playing the holding midfield role in the Premier League this season. I think ideally, as you had touched on as well, I think they will go for another holding midfielder because of Endo's age. It might be a lot for him to nail down that position all season. But yeah, I see him play, I think, a midfield of McAllister on the left, Szoboszlai on the right, and a top holding midfielder, Endo for now, and then maybe a future replacement is a real top midfield. And despite Klopp going, still something for Liverpool fans to be excited about in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Very encouraging for Liverpool fans who can, of course, let us know in the comments below how well they think McAllister's done. Do you think he's number 6? Do you think he's a number 8? Why do you think he's very suddenly kind of managed to slot into this team where someone like Moises Caicedo are at Chelsea or other players around the Premier League haven't done as well? So, yeah, as always, like and subscribe to the video. If you've enjoyed this video, let us know what you think. And until next time, we'll speak to you soon.